TSMC reports record earnings for the last quarter of 2024, the chip maker's biggest year yet. After 15 months of devastating war, Israel and Hamas agree to a ceasefire. With thousands of items up for debate, Taiwan's lawmakers remain divided over this year's budget as tempers flare. Plus,
see all that driftwood behind me? That was washed down from the mountains by a typhoon. Today we've come to a community in southern Taiwan to find out how the residents are turning it into violins.
A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Philip Broussard. Taiwan's largest company, TSMC, has reported record revenue of almost $27 billion for the fourth quarter of 2024. Reporter Rik Glauert was at the earnings conference in Taipei and says the company downplayed concerns about U.S. export controls on AI chips.
The world's largest chipmaker has reported record earnings for its last quarter of 2024, making it the company's biggest year yet. At its earnings conference here in Taipei, TSMC reported fourth quarter revenue of nearly $27 billion, a nearly 39% increase over the same period last year, while net income increased nearly 60%. 2024 was eventful for Taiwan's largest company, which saw big progress on its expansion in countries like the US and Japan. It's responsible for producing more than 90% of the world's most advanced chips. And TSMC says that chips for high-performance computing, driven largely by AI, was by far its biggest area of growth last year. But there have also been hiccups. The company was found to have violated U.S. export controls when its chips were found in a processor made by Chinese tech company Huawei. And overnight, the U.S. announced a fresh round of regulations, which many believe are aimed at preventing such incidents from happening again. However, Chairman and CEO C.C. Wei said they do not expect the controls to significantly impact their operations. Wei also responded to news that Taiwan appears to have lifted restrictions on its most advanced 2-nanometer production outside of Taiwan, perhaps allowing production at its Arizona fab, and whether the next advancement in chips might premiere in its overseas facilities.
Ramping up, introduce a new technology into manufacturing. The fab, the process is so complicated, so it has to be very close to the R&D people. We want to ramp up the same kind of technology in US, but that practically is a little bit difficult. So Taiwan will always be first.
The company is dealing with both record growth and political uncertainty, but it's optimistic that its winning streak can continue. Kama Xu and Rik Glauert in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang has attended the opening ceremony of a new semiconductor packaging factory in Taiwan, just days after Washington slapped new export restrictions on its own AI industry. Reese Ayers was there.
NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang is back in Taiwan to christen a new semiconductor testing and packaging factory, celebrating a core partnership powering the next generation of AI systems. Unveiling the sign at a new site in the central city of Taichung, Huang spoke to NVIDIA's long-standing relationship with Siliconware Precision Industries, who test and package the world's leading semiconductors, also hinting at a new generation of AI that will bring the technology into the real world.
One of the great opportunities for Taiwan is that AI's next stage, the next wave of AI, is called physical AI. Physical AI is where AI interacts with the physical world. It means robotics. Taiwan's manufacturing, electronics manufacturing industry is unquestionably one of the world's leading. This industry will benefit from robotics tremendously.
Huang's visit comes just days after the Biden administration announced new export regulations on AI chips, completely blocking shipments of advanced GPUs needed to power AI to several countries, including China, an attempt to protect the US's dominance in the technology. And while Taiwan is one of 18 countries that still enjoys unrestricted access to US tech, some in the AI industry, including NVIDIA, have warned the controls could damage the industry. Though it wasn't a subject Huang was eager to discuss at the event.
I just have a quick question on AI finance. How might new rules on AI from the Biden administration affect global AI development? And is NVIDIA hopeful that the incoming Trump administration will overturn this?
Let's start with the celebration of the new spill factory in our partnership.
While NVIDIA has a lot to look forward to here in Taiwan, there's speculation the company's overseas headquarters could be based here. The outgoing Biden administration's attempts to safeguard the US's AI prowess could put some brakes on AI companies' ability to access global markets. The next big question for NVIDIA: could the incoming Trump administration's self-declared intent to put America first put even more restrictions on the country's AI giants? Patrick Chen, Ryan Wu and Risa in Taichung for TaiwanPlus.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has accused Hamas of reneging on parts of a ceasefire deal just hours after it was concluded. Hamas says it's fully committed to the agreement. It comes after earlier relief and elation in Gaza when Israel and Hamas agreed to stop hostilities over a year on from the start of a conflict that's seen tens of thousands killed. Rosie Greninger reports.
Jubilation among Palestinians in the streets of Gaza as an agreement is reached for a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. War has been raging here for 15 months, with Israel relentlessly bombing the enclave of 2 million people. The assault in response to Hamas's October 7th attack on the country, which left 1,200 dead. Now more than 46,000 people have lost their lives here, and after months of negotiations, an end to the bloodshed is finally in sight.
كل ساعة بنقول ندعي الله وتوقف الحرب، احنا يا جماعة بدنا نريح، بدنا نعيش بأمان ونشكر الله ونحمده، إلا في هذه الساعة سمعنا خبر كويس الحمد لله.
والله طرت من الفرحة، فرحان بس برضه في نفس الوقت زعلان إنه الواحد يرجع على بيته فاقد أحفاد، فاقد أبو، فاقد أخو، فاقد ابن عم، فاقد جيران، فاقد داره. ليش بدنا نقول؟ الحمد لله.
Mediated by Qatar and the US, the truce was reached in Doha and is set to begin in 3 days on the 19th of January, as long as it's approved by the Israeli cabinet. The initial 6-week phase will include the withdrawal of Israeli forces from central Gaza and the return of displaced Palestinians to the northern part of the Strip. Hamas will release 33 of the nearly 100 hostages still in their custody, including women, children and elderly. In return, Israel will release 30 Palestinian detainees per hostage. Of the 251 people taken from Israel by Hamas on October 7th, 105 were released during a temporary ceasefire in November. After this upcoming exchange, Hamas will continue to hold more than 60 hostages, although tens of them are presumed dead. In Tel Aviv, where demonstrators have been asking their government to bring the hostages home, a mix of reactions to the news of the deal.
It's not a joy, it's a bitter relief, but it's going to be a huge relief first of all, whenever I see offer. Secondly, whenever I'm going to see the last hostages crossing the border.
I'm afraid that our government, especially I'm afraid from our government, that they will do something wrong to stop the agreement.
The first 6-week phase will also see 600 truckloads of aid flow into Gaza daily, urgently needed in the enclave suffering from a humanitarian crisis with a lack of clean water, food and medical necessities. Outgoing US President Joe Biden held the agreement and the intense diplomacy under his administration that helped secure it.
This has been a time of real turmoil in the Middle East, but as I prepare to leave office, our friends are strong, our enemies are weak, and there's a genuine opportunities for a new future.
But President-elect Donald Trump has also claimed credit for the truce, which will come into effect just a day before his inauguration, saying it was his involvement in the last stages that pushed the deal through. an assertion that didn't go down too well with the outgoing leader.
Who books credit for this, Mr. President, you or Trump?
Is that a joke?
Once the reins in the US are handed over to Trump, negotiations over the second phase will begin, expected to include a permanent ceasefire and complete withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza. A third phase will then decide the long-term future of the enclave. But as its residents celebrate the temporary end to fighting, there is still much trepidation about the hurdles to come before they can finally put the war behind them. James Lin and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's lawmakers remain deeply divided over this year's budget. They have so far failed to agree on a single one of the more than 3,000 items up for discussion. John Van Trieste reports on how tempers are flaring.
Shouting and name-calling in the legislature as partisan grievances flare. Lawmakers have almost 3,300 budgetary items to clear for the year ahead, from military spending to the budget on media, including TaiwanPlus. And they've yet to get on the same page about even one of them. When they reconvene later Thursday, the temperature is unlikely to come down. Controversial recent bills affecting things like the Constitutional Court have the ruling Democratic Progressive Party and the chief opposition party, the Kuomintang, at each other's throats. Both sides are now threatening each other with a nuclear option, a mass nationwide recall campaign. They hope to wipe out the opponent's caucus. These threats helped derail Wednesday's attempt at budget talks.
院长，对不起，请问一下，大罢免跟预算什么？
But this wasn't the only loss of cool during the meeting. And Taiwan's third party, the Taiwan People's Party, is angry at the DPP too. It's incensed at what it sees as the politically motivated corruption charges against its founder, Ko Wen-je. Now it's also angry at accusations its proposed 3% military budget cut is motivated by sympathy for China. The party says the military budget has gone down steadily under the rule of both the other parties.
来谈说要帮韩国瑜办告别演说，来进行人身攻击，来进行抹红，大概整个过程啊就是这样。所有看到整个协商过程。
There was some substantive discussion. On the defense budget, there was debate about how much to spend on Taiwan's domestic submarine program. But here, too, disagreement about the facts, in this case, how much the defense minister had asked for, brought talks to a halt.
他只要用2亿，为什么要编个20亿？所以18亿的冻结是这样子来的。但是呢，铺天盖地的这些网军跟侧翼啊，一直在攻击我们。
顾部长认可潜舰预算冻结18亿元的相关共识的一个内容，并非事实。国防部立场始终未曾改变，即为争取预算全数通过。
With no progress, Speaker Han Kuo-yu called a recess until Thursday. But the fraught political atmosphere isn't going away, and it could be some time before lawmakers can cool down enough to start making a dent in the significant amount of work ahead of them. Joseph Wu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's Foreign Minister Lin Jialong is leading a large delegation to Palau for the inauguration of President Surangel Whips Jr. into a second term in office. Taiwan has been looking to shore up ties with the Pacific Island nation, one of just 12 countries around the world to recognize its sovereignty. Rik Glauert reports from the country's capital.
Here at the country's capital, Palau is inaugurating Surangel Whips Jr. into his second term as the country's president. This Pacific Island nation is strategically important. It's home to just 18,000 people, but it has a defense agreement with the United States, and it's one of just 12 countries around the world that has official diplomatic relations with Taiwan. As he enters his second term, Whips has promised to diversify the country's tourism-dependent economy, as well as protecting the country's environment and natural resources. He's also said he's going to continue to stand up to China, which he says has been putting pressure on his country due to its stance on Taiwan.
We are truly grateful for the partnerships that have been strengthened in the last 30 years and over the past 4 years. We are grateful to the United States, Japan, Taiwan, Australia, and all our diplomatic allies who have worked with us and supported us through the most difficult times.
Diplomats and dignitaries from more than 30 countries are here at the ceremony. One of the highest level delegations is led by Taiwan's Foreign Minister Lin Jialong, as Taiwan looks to boost its presence here in the Pacific. Lin is leading a delegation of more than 50, including business people looking to invest in Palau.
We are like-minded people, and we share common values of democracy, freedom, respect for human rights. So we work together quite closely.
As he enters his second term in office, Whips has encouraged more cooperation and more investment from Taiwan. He's also said that Chinese intimidation against his country is increasing and that their tactics are changing, and that he'll need help from international allies to stand up to this threat. Alex Chen and Rik Glauert in Ngulmud, Palau for TaiwanPlus.
Now, ahead of the president's swearing in, our reporter Rik Glauert sat down with Mr. Whips in Palau's former capital of Koror.
As a Pacific Island nation in a strategic location, Palau is caught between big world powers like the US and China, and your friendship with Taiwan makes you a target for Beijing. You flagged economic coercion from China, cyber attacks, and Chinese vessels entering your waters. Have you seen China's tactics change as you're entering into your second term in office?
Well, we definitely see an uptick in organized crime coming into Palau, whether it's the online gaming operations. We've had a record number of drug busts at the airport, Chinese nationals bringing in drugs. So, and these are all issues, I think, that help weaken us as a nation. And so we're very vigilant, and it's, I'm glad that Taiwan is assisting us. Their Justice Department is assisting us in combating these challenges, because we need good intelligence. We have Chinese research vessels continuing to come into our EEZ, not respecting our boundaries and our rule of law. And they've even gone in to our areas and named ridges, Chinese names, undersea ridges. And then on our extended continental shelf, they're constantly surveying and try to put Chinese names on those ridges.
Do you think actions like this, Chinese vessels naming geographical features, ridges, reefs, is an infringement of your sovereignty?
Oh, absolutely. We're a long ways from China, but to have ridges within our EEZ and on our continental shelf that have Chinese names on them because of those research vessels, to me is a threat to our territorial boundaries.
Let's talk about your relationship with Taiwan. You've been a diplomatic ally of Taiwan for decades, and despite pressure from China to switch allegiance to Beijing, you've said you've promised to stick by Taiwan. Why?
I think most importantly, we're a free and democratic country. We respect rule of law, human rights, and territorial boundaries. And I think as a small nation, if those rules are not respected, then all our survival is at stake. So now more than ever, I think all countries should stand by Taiwan, big and small, because I think at the end of the day, we all want to live in peace and harmony and respect each other's territorial boundaries. And at the end of the day, that's all we're asking for. Keep the status quo and continue to work together to build a planet that we can all live in harmony.
Palau is one of just 12 countries that officially recognizes Taiwan's sovereignty, and you've said that it's important for you to give Taiwan a voice on the international stage and speak up for Taiwan in places like the United Nations. Given China's objections and influence, this must be difficult. Have you personally experienced any pressure or pushback?
Chinese officials always tell us you need to do the right thing, and the right thing for them is to denounce Taiwan. And I say, well, no, that's not an option for us. We're all members of the UN. We respect your sovereignty. We respect you as a country. And you need to respect us as a country and respect our sovereignty and our decision to recognize Taiwan. And we recognize you as a country. Give us the same courtesy. But obviously, that's not what China wants to agree to. And so their narrative is always, we need to change what we're doing and join the rest of the world.
That was newly re-inaugurated Palauan President Surangel Whips Jr. What do you do when a typhoon delivers hundreds of tons of driftwood to your doorstep? Well, in one village in southern Taiwan, the residents have found an extraordinary answer. They make violins. And Ryan has the story in part 4 of our series. Where's the Chiayi County chief taking us?
Life in Chiayi County relies on water. It nurtures the verdant forests and thriving tea fields. But too much water can also bring destruction, like the typhoon rains that washed out the rail tracks on Alishan. Fortunately, Chiayi County has a solution: the Zhengwen Reservoir. At 17 square kilometers, this is Taiwan's largest body of water. It not only helps tame the floods, it also irrigates fields and powers homes. Today, it's an ecotourism hotspot. Visitors can catch fish and feed them to black kites. And on a tiny island, you can witness a curious spectacle.
第一个是野生的山猪，而且这个野生的山猪有一个很重大的特色。什么特色？你只有放公主夜未眠的歌剧，它才会跑出来。
You play a little Pavarotti, the pigs come running, you feed the pigs. They're happy. We're happy. We take pictures. Unique.
When the government built the reservoir in the 1970s, they put restrictions in place to protect the water. Nearby residents had to stop farming and were forced off their land. But former village chief Wu Yihao came up with a unique idea to revitalize his community and put to use some of the hundreds of thousands of tons of driftwood brought by Typhoon Morakot.
我听到那个声音，我觉得，那个就是我要找的灵魂。我觉得，如果在这个地方可以有音乐在这里飘扬，有弦乐，我觉得这里很美。那美的背后要怎么样去持续？后面想一想，那我希望至勤。
你觉得我们这个琴怎么样？我们用漂流木做的琴，
听不出来是漂流木的琴，
是哈，
感觉很像，对啊，
感觉很像去商店买的。
The art of making violins originated in Italy in the 1500s, but a group of about 20 people, led by a skilled artisan, is lovingly crafting them here on the shores of Zhengwen Reservoir and infusing them with the sounds of Taiwan.
我们用本土的木材来做。 那本来台湾它本身，因为它本来的林业多样性是非常丰富的。那在国外，比如说它的面板，那是用云杉，云杉台湾也有啊。既然把一个西方的一个很好的工艺带到这里来，那我相信在时间的堆叠下，持续在制作、在发酵，我觉得我们还可以替台湾多创造更多属于台湾的一个特有的文化。
The villagers aren't just learning how to make the violins, they're learning how to play them too. And that's inspired others from near and far to embrace this shared musical dream. 74-year-old Zhang Yongbao is from nearby Tainan City. He moved to the village expressly to learn how to make and play the violin.
是你自己慢慢用，跟老师学习，然后做出来的琴，好像自己的小孩一样。你从 小照顾，然后到可以你可以拉它的时候，那种感觉真的是不一样。
The impact of the violins is resonating beyond the instruments and the people who make them. The former village chief has turned the community center into a hub where visitors can enjoy music and support the local farmers helping children and seniors in the process. It's also encouraging more young people to return to their hometown.
我们虽然是偏乡，可是我们如果经过很长久时间的堆叠，我们培养出很多有素养的人，我觉得这地方会变得不一样。大家是可以更有自信的，觉得我住在大埔，虽然我住在偏乡，可是我是非常荣耀的住在这里。
It's hard to imagine that these instruments were created from driftwood that washed down from the mountains because of a storm. But it's not just about the music, it's about the community that they're building with these and about how it's helping them to reimagine the future.
The village is so proud of its violin makers that they hold an annual music festival on the banks of the reservoir to showcase their talents. And they've designed a museum to display hundreds of instruments made right here in Dapu village and the stories of the people who made them. Devin Tsai, Joseph Wu, Peachy Drong, and Andrew Ryan for TaiwanPlus. Coming up in part 5 of our trip to Chiayi County, we visit the world's largest structure shaped like a high-heeled shoe. What's it doing glamming up rural Taiwan? We'll have the answers in our series finale.
Now, if you missed the first 3 episodes of Andrew's trip to Chiayi, you'll find them all at TaiwanPlus.com. We'd like to thank you for joining us here on TaiwanPlus News. Finally, today we leave you with these images of a contemporary art show in Morocco, showcasing the talent of local artist Chiayi Palau. I'm Philip Broussard. Take care, and we'll see you next time.